You hear that sound, that deep, rhythmic rotor thump cutting across the tropics.
Yeah.
That's the sound of the Indo-Pacific getting two new, very serious security managers. Forget the glittering skylines and the glossy promotional videos for a second.
Mhm.
We are setting the scene today on a critical, complicated chessboard, one that is perpetually soaked in diesel.
It really is. A very complex picture out there.
We're talking about a theater where the rules of engagement are being rewritten daily. For decades, the answer to any conflict, large or small, involved deploying the most expensive piece of hardware you had.
Right. That was the default, yeah. Bring out the big guns.
But today, the game has flipped completely.
Hmm.
We are in an environment where a simple, commercially available $20,000 drone can effectively tie up a $3 billion destroyer. Think about that.
It's kind of mind-boggling when you put it like that. And that's really our mission today, to unpack the huge significance of the Australian Army receiving its first two AH-64E version 6 Apaches.
Just arrived, right. RAAF Base Townsville, October 3rd.
That's it. Delivered recently. And look, this deep dive, it's about more than just, a new helicopter arriving.
Yeah.
It's really about understanding how brains are beating budget in modern warfare.
Brains beating budget. I like that.
Yeah, networked, high-tempo warfare. This platform isn't just an asset, it's a statement. A statement about strategic affordability and seamless connectivity.
And what we found digging into this suggests two key technologies are responsible for making this airframe, which, let's be honest, its basic shape screams 1980s.
Oh, absolutely. Its roots are deep.
Making it suddenly the deadliest thing in the sky, manned-unmanned teaming, MUMT, and this rise of low-cost precision weapons.
That's the combo.
And when you put those together, you get what we're calling humiliation economics.
Humiliation economics. It's harsh, but accurate.
Yeah.
But to really appreciate the solution, we have to grasp the tactical problem first, the context.
Okay.
Because the Apache, this specific version, is meant to solve a very specific and, frankly, agonizing headache for commanders operating near the coast in the littoral zone.
The mosquito problem, I've heard it called that. You know, that tactical nightmare where the enemies of order don't need aircraft carriers or fancy jets.
Nope.
They just need chaos.
Mm-hmm.
You have swarms of cheap, fast attack boats playing chicken near shipping lanes, maybe.
Or that single $20,000 drone just buzzing around, playing target practice with your warships, very expensive sensors.
Right.
And the old doctrine, unfortunately, demanded a dramatic but fiscally dumb response.
Dumb is a good word for it.
You use a $1 million missile to swat that $20,000 flying lawnmower. It's effective, yes, don't get me wrong, but it is financially ruinous. That high cost per kill ratio doesn't just empty your bank account. It actively encourages the enemy to send 10 more mosquitoes.
Because they know they're winning just by making you shoot.
Exactly. They know they are bleeding your resources with every single shot you fire.
And it's not just the cost of the missile itself, is it? Think about the operational tempo. A single cigarette boat with a radio or a drone just loitering. It forces a multi-billion-dollar destroyer to stop what it's doing.
Pauses its main mission.
Yeah. And dedicate valuable ship time, crew attention, missile inventory, just to play babysitter for hours on end.
That high-end ship, that incredible asset, is now tied down dealing with a threat that's basically designed to be disposable. It's incredibly inefficient.
That operational cost, the wear and tear, the fuel, the crew fatigue, it's enormous.
It is. You're burning up valuable airframe life on jets or using up high-value munition stores just to maintain basic safety. And this is why Australia learned such a hard lesson with the platform the Apache is replacing.
Ah, right. The previous helicopter.
They needed a hunter that was, above all else, available.
Yeah.
The previous one, the European Tiger ARH. Well, it looked great on posters, sure,
Very sleek.
but notoriously temperamental and moody in maintenance, as the sources put it.
Coach, that must have been a brutal lesson for the planners. You just want something that works, right? Something that answers the phone on a Tuesday morning?
Precisely. The requirement isn't just capability, it's operational availability. That's key.
Makes sense.
If your attack helicopter is spending half its life in the hangar waiting for some complicated European part, you don't have an attack helicopter, not really.
Not when you need it.
Availability is a core strategy, especially in a vast area like the Indo Pacific where deployment distances are just huge.
Okay, so availability is king.
Which brings us to the fascinating irony here. Australia replaced that finicky, supposedly super advanced European cat
Yeah.
with an American airframe whose core design, let's face it, goes back to the early 1980s.
Seems counterintuitive, doesn't it?
On the surface, maybe. But the AH-64 just keeps killing, as they say, because while everyone else was focused on selling futuristic designs, the Apache quietly learned the internet. It modernized its digital backbone.
Ah, so the magic is inside?
Completely. The full Australian order is for 29 aircraft, expected delivery by 2029. And every one of those birds is designed to be reliable, boring in all the right ways, and utterly networked.
Okay, let's unpack that network part then, this core technology, because the AH-64E V6 isn't just an attack helicopter anymore. You called it an Ethernet port with teeth.
Haha. Yeah, I like that description. It really operates as a vital node in the network rather than just an isolated weapon system flying around on its own.
A node, okay.
And that structural change, that's everything. We are talking about manned-unmanned teaming, or MUMT.
MUMT, right.
This means the Apache pilot isn't restricted to looking through their own cockpit sensors. They are effectively viewing the world through the optics and sensors of several nearby drones simultaneously. Maybe Army drones, maybe Navy drones.
So they're seeing multiple viewpoints at once.
And controlling them. The pilot can steer those drone sensors, gather real-time targeting data, build up a complete picture of the battle space, all without having to stick the Apache's nose out into the really high-risk areas.
Into the kill web, as you called it.
Exactly. Keep the expensive assets safe.
So the real value isn't just seeing more, it's the operational safety angle, and maybe reducing the pilot's workload.
Both, definitely. By directing the unmanned traffic and receiving pre-validated targeting data, the pilot shifts from being this high-stress spotter and hunter
Doing everything themselves.
to a cleaner, lower-stress execution role. The machine handles the beta fusion, the machine takes the exposure risk, while the human in the loop handles the final decision and the weapon delivery.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. And how does it connect? What's the tech enabling that?
It's got a fully comprehensive connectivity suite. Link 16, which is the standard NATO data link, Blue Force tracker so everyone knows where friendlies are, and critically, an upgraded Longbow radar.
Longbow, that's the thing on top, right? The dome.
That's the one. And this version has been specifically optimized for those tricky, messy littoral environments, nearshore operations.
Right. Where targets can hide easily.
Exactly. It's optimized for finding small, fast, low observable targets like speedboats or those annoying drones playing possum against a cluttered background of waves and land. It's engineered for the fight they know they will face.
This sounds like exactly what the sources called networked homicide. Could you, walk us through a scenario, a clean illustration of how this kill web actually works out there?
Sure, yeah. Picture this. An Army or Navy UAV, maybe a shadow drone or something larger, is flying patrol, say, 50 kilometers off the coast.
Huh.
It spots a swarm of fast boats weaving through a difficult reef line, trying to use the terrain to mask their approach towards maybe a friendly ship or a port.
Sneaky.
Very. The E-model Apache, meanwhile, is sitting maybe 10 kilometers inland, concealed behind a tree line or a low ridge, just hovering quietly.
Out of sight.
Completely. The Apache gets a clean, instantaneous digitized track of those boats via its secure network link straight from the drone.
So no voice calls, just data.
Pure data. The pilot sees it on their screen, pushes a cursor onto one of the targets, and instantly the Apache's own sensor turret slews, zooms in, and locks onto that exact spec on the waves.
Wow.
There is no dramatic, high-risk flyby needed to acquire the target. No heroics involved where the pilot has to visually find it first.
It's all done remotely, digitally.
It's a clean, quiet-firing solution, delivered lethally, probably from an unexpected angle that denies the enemy any predictable warning or response time. What Australia bought isn't just a helicopter. It's a nasty network node that takes any sensor's whisper and turns it into lethal output.
Okay, lethal output. But even with the perfect target track from a drone, you still hit that fiscal wall we talked about earlier.
Back to the money. Always.
Which brings us back to humiliation economics. You simply cannot keep wasting a high-value cruise missile or even a standard Hellfire on every single speedboat, right? Even if it's a perfect shot. Let's talk about the cost of actually pulling the trigger.
That's the entire strategic calculation, isn't it? And that's where the specific low-cost precision weapon comes in. The star of the show in many ways.
Which one is that?
The $27,000 Advanced Precision Kill Weapon System, or APKWS. Take a standard, old-school, pretty dumb 70mm rocket.
Like the ones they've used for decades.
Exactly. Been around forever.
Yeah.
And you bolt on a relatively simple guidance kit and a laser brain. That's it.
$27,000. Compare that to... What, a Hellfire is what, 150Ks more?
Easily. And a JASSM or something from a jet is way over $1 million. So $27K versus potentially $1 million.
That, to me, is the cheap date that ruins expensive evenings. That's brilliant.
It allows for what you called vengeance by spreadsheet, winning the long game on operating cost, not just the immediate tactical exchange.
So you can afford to shoot more often, handle more targets.
Precisely. It shifts the battlefield from this duel of expensive, exquisite assets to more of a grind. High-volume, low-cost precision shots.
Right.
But, crucially, if the threat steps up, if it's something more serious than a speedboat.
The Apache still has bigger teeth.
Oh, yeah. It isn't limited to just rockets. It still carries the potent Hellfire missile, the standard for anti-armor for years. And it's integrating the incoming Joint Air-to-Ground missile, the JAGM.
JAGM. You mentioned that has smarter seekers. What does that mean practically for the pilot? Is it fire and forget?
It's about all-weather reliability, mainly. JGM is essentially a dual-mode missile. It keeps the standard Hellfire laser guidance very accurate if the laser spot is maintained.
Okay.
But it adds a millimeter-wave radar seeker that lets the missile guide itself using radar imaging in the final phase.
Ah, so if the laser gets blocked by smoke or bad weather?
Exactly. Or dust, or heavy rain, conditions where a laser might break lock, the radar seeker takes over, ensuring a high probability of kill even when the environment is messy. It makes it much more reliable in realistic battlefield conditions.
Got it. More robust.
And, of course, let's not forget the 30mm chain gun. Still there.
Yeah.
The Cold War's favorite accountant, maybe.
Haha, yeah. Ready to balance the books up close?
Ready to balance the tactical ledgers with high explosive rounds firing at 625 rounds per minute if things get up close and personal.
So the strategic goal here seems crystal clear. Force the enemy to spend big, either wasting their operational time or using their own expensive ordnance, to counterattacks that you mount cheap, quiet, and often.
That's the economic warfare aspect.
And the irony just keeps hitting me. This old helicopter design, born decades ago, is the one that kept evolving its network smarts. While the old doctrine the targets relied on, just overwhelming with cheap numbers, hasn't really kept pace with this kind of networked precision.
And that's where we should maybe widen the aperture a bit, connect the platform's delivery to the broader political message.
How so?
Well, every time an allied force fields a platform that is highly reliable, highly interoperable with partners, and crucially, cost smart per shot, it directly chips away at those authoritarian narratives.
What narratives are those?
The ones that rely on propaganda about overwhelming force. The myth of the unstoppable swarm of cheap boats or drones, or the idea of an invincible A2AD bubble anti-accessoria denial.
Right, the idea that they can just keep anyone out.
That narrative starts to crumble under, 1,000 cheap, precise cuts delivered by something like an Apache using APKWS via mumt. The Apache isn't a silver bullet on its own. It's a strategically significant silver network connector.
It plugs Australia tighter into the bigger allied kill web. Exactly. Tighter integration. Meaning, it's not just operating alone. It's receiving tracks and validating data from high-end assets like the F-35 fighters overhead.
Okay.
And maybe piping target plots down from the massive Wedgetail surveillance aircraft circling way back. This reality, this network, is what the sources describe as a robust mesh.
Network.
Yeah, and that mesh is always going to beat the enemy's propaganda monologue in the long run because it's real, adaptable, and distributed.
So this isn't just a tactical win with a new helicopter. This platform is forcing a pretty complete strategic and economic realignment in Australia just to support it properly.
That's absolutely right. And the local commitment, the Australian industry involvement, is significant. Boeing Defence Australia has the main support contract 7 years, worth $306 million.
Big investment.
And you have Minister Pat Conroy stating explicitly that these new attack helicopters are critical to modernizing the ADF and transforming the Army into a force optimized for littoral maneuver and long-range strike. That's the strategic intent right there. And this isn't just buying foreign hardware off the shelf, is it? The sources mention local manufacturing.
Correct. This capability build is happening locally, too. Australian companies are manufacturing complex components for both the Australian and the global Apache fleets.
Oh, interesting. So exports, too.
Potentially, yes. We're talking Cablex making sophisticated wire harnesses, Axiom Precision Manufacturing producing avionics shelving, Farah and Mincham supplying advanced composite parts. This builds up long-term sovereign capability to maintain and upgrade these things.
That makes sense. You need the local expertise.
And that transformation demands serious investment in infrastructure and training as well. The government is putting a huge $700 million into essential infrastructure upgrades and new facilities at RAAF Base Townsville.
$700 million just for the base upgrade.
Just for the base work, yeah. To support the fleet introduction and the permanent relocation of the Army's 1st Aviation Regiment there. And they are also creating the Townsville Aviation Training Academy. That's specifically to train the industry maintenance personnel, not just the Army techs, but the contractors too, for both the Apache and the CH-47F Chinook fleets already there.
So building the whole ecosystem.
Exactly. It's about ensuring guaranteed availability for these critical assets for decades to come. Long-term thinking.
So wrapping this up, we've seen Australia basically traded a beautiful, but let's say temperamental showpiece for a boring killer, prioritizing performance, solid reliability, and lethal network throughput over just looking cool on a poster.
Performance over posters. That's a good way to put it.
The Indo Pacific just got 2 new night shift managers who operate strictly by the numbers, by the network, and by the spreadsheet.
The strategic shift is clear.
Right.
Leveraging advanced networking to achieve lethal effects at much lower cost per engagement. But the arrival of these first 2 aircraft, it raises an immediate and pretty critical question.
What's that?
It's something for you, the listener, to really consider, and it builds on the strategic deployment questions hinted at in the sources. Should Australia push the Apache to sea?
You mean operating them off their big amphibious ships, the LHDs?
Exactly. Should they focus on using deck operations off their massive landing helicopter docks for true littoral standoff strike capability, projecting power right up to the coastline from the sea, versus the alternative? Or is the better strategic choice to keep them primarily as inland ambush predators, tucked away behind terrain, maximizing concealment, and simply feeding their network kill chains out to the jets and ships that operate further offshore?
So sea-based forward presence versus land-based concealed ambush.
That's the core deployment question, really. That deployment strategy, inland ambush predator or forward sea-based striker, will ultimately define how effective this whole $27,000 vengeance by spreadsheet concept truly is in their specific environment.
That choice, yeah, that'll define the next decade of Australian defense strategy in the North, I imagine. The ledger always wins, as they say.
And this new ledger is designed to bleed the enemy by the minute, not the million.
A chilling thought to end on. Go consider your battle plan, everyone. We'll catch you on the next deep dive.